Our 2022 is coming to a close, and this week we're looking at the stories that have defined a tumultuous year. We're starting off with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a military conflict assuming proportions not seen in decades, with effects felt far and wide. A defining moment for the West as it continues to support Ukraine in myriad ways. Analysis coming up, but first here's a state of play in 60 seconds.
The first invasion of a European country by another since World War II. Vladimir Putin calling it a special military operation.
Мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины.
Russia ramping up an 8-year conflict that began with the annexation of Crimea.
Ця ніч буде більш тяжкою, ніж день.
Intense shelling and widespread devastation. The siege of Mariupol, emblematic of the war's ruinous impact. Global condemnation, but peace elusive. Sanctions and a mass corporate exodus failing to bring Russia's economy to its knees. Undeterred, Putin looks east, but his failed assault in the north grants Ukraine a momentary upper hand. All this as the human cost climbs. The catastrophic possibility of a nuclear accident an ever-present risk. A war of attrition threatens as millions brace for a long and dark winter.
Well, a visit by Russian President Vladimir Putin to Belarus is fueling fears that he will pressure his ex-Soviet ally into joining a new offensive on Ukraine. The Kremlin has described Mr. Putin's trip as a broad working visit, which includes talks with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. And you're seeing there live pictures of what we believe is Putin's plane touching down in Minsk, and Lukashenko awaiting to greet the Russian president there. Now, Belarus, you'll remember, has so far allowed Russia to use its territory as a launchpad for its invasion of Ukraine, but has not joined in the fighting directly. Mr. Lukashenko has also said repeatedly he has no intention of sending his country's troops into Ukraine. But Ukrainian officials have warned for months that Belarus could again serve as a base for a ground attack on Kyiv. Meanwhile, Russian news agency Interfax is reporting that Moscow's troops in Belarus will be conducting military exercises. Several thousand Russian soldiers have already been in the country since October, after the formation of a joint regional force between the two countries. There were no further details on when and where the drills will take place. Russia had amassed up to 190,000 troops on the border back in February before its invasion of Ukraine. Once more, you're looking at live pictures there. Russian President Vladimir Putin arriving in Minsk for what's been described as a work trip to meet Lukashenko right there to perhaps find out how they are going to collaborate. Let's bring in our Linda Herring, who joins us from the U.S. Ms. Herring is the Deputy Director of the Eurasia Center at think tank Atlantic Council. Ms. Herring, we're just seeing those live pictures coming out of Minsk at the moment, with the two men shaking hands. So let's start there. Putin's visit to Belarus, he is thought to be looking for a broader involvement from the Belarusian armed forces in the war. What do you think he might be asking for? And does this also then bolster talks of that fresh Russian assault in the new year?
Good evening. Yes, so this is a big deal. This is the first visit that Putin has made to Minsk in 3 years. And I think it underscores a couple of things. It underscores that Putin doesn't have very many friends. He needs a favor from Lukashenko. Lukashenko can give him access to the northern border of Ukraine. So if Russia is indeed planning an assault in January or the spring, he needs Lukashenko's cooperation. He would also like some forces, the Belarusian forces, to be fighting on his side. And so far, Lukashenko has resisted, and I think he will continue to resist. If he gives in, he's toast, and he will not have any independence. Lukashenko is really good at playing games with Putin.
Interesting. Momentum has been on Ukraine's side with the offensive around Kyiv and Kherson. But how hard will it be to maintain that momentum through winter, especially as we've been seeing Russia pivot quite effectively to attacks on infrastructure and those use of Iranian-made drones?
That's a great question. So the Ukrainians do have momentum on their side, but they are getting tired. They made a lot of progress, as you said, in the north, in the east, in the south. The bottom line, though, is that the Russian side can't make any progress on the military side. They can only defend what they've taken so far, and that's why they've opted for this cowardly strategy of hitting infrastructure since October, and they're pretty good at it. Experts estimate that there's probably another 3 rounds of volleys of rockets. And this is about 80 to 90 rockets per volley. And we don't know how much longer Ukraine's grid can hold out. That's really the scary part.
Indeed, and I want to look at the repercussions of that in just a while. But also, Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, now he's said that his end game is to see, quote, a return of all lands. Now, this would, of course, include Donbass and Crimea, territory seized by Putin in 2014. Is that realistic to you, or just talk by Zelensky that could, in fact, escalate the wars to levels we haven't seen yet?
President Zelensky's determination to retake Crimea and all of Ukraine, I think, is eminently doable. So I am not a military expert, but I talk to a lot of military experts, and they say that Ukraine can be back to its February 23rd borders by Christmas of this year and in Crimea by next year if the West continues to give the military assistance, the financial assistance, and the humanitarian assistance, all the electrical equipment that's being destroyed now. So it's doable, but it really depends on us.
Well, that's the next question, because the U.S. has, in fact, said that it's sending its Patriot missile defense systems to Ukraine. That is one of the most advanced U.S. air defense systems. Could that be the game changer for Ukraine? But at the same time, potentially, it might even force Russia's nuclear hand.
So don't get too excited. The Patriot system is a big deal. It's one of our most sophisticated systems, but Ukraine is a huge country. So you cannot put enough air defense systems in Ukraine to completely protect the country. And air defense systems are not enough. They also need planes. And the West has been unwilling to send those jets. There was a deal in the works earlier on, but everyone backed out. So if we're really going to make sure that Ukraine wins and protect Ukraine during the winter, we need to do 3 things. We need to send air defense systems, jets, and then all the electrical equipment to repair the grid. If you don't send all 3 legs of the triangle, it's not going to work. Will sending the Patriot system provoke Russia? No. So Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Ukraine, is not I don't take him very seriously, and he makes a lot of irresponsible statements. He said that sending the Patriot system would provoke Russia. I don't see any evidence for that. When you look at the cost and benefits of Russia using nuclear weapons, there are very few benefits to Russia. It just doesn't make sense. You know, if you're going to ask me to give you a number, I'd say it's a 5% chance that Vladimir Putin uses tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. I think it's very, very low at this point.
Ms. Herring, we appreciate you coming and speaking with us on this evolving topic. Melinda Herring, Deputy Director of the Eurasia Center at the U.S. think tank Atlantic Council.